What happens when the medical system doesn't have the answers you need? At 25, Melissa's life changed after a vaccine injury left her struggling with chronic illness. For 15 years, she fought to be heard and dismissed by doctors. In this episode, Melissa shares her journey of frustration, gaslighting, and the breakthrough moments she found through holistic medicine. Her story is one of resilience and self-advocacy that will resonate with many. Tune in to hear her powerful journey toward healing and empowerment. This is episode 77, The Silent Struggles of Chronic Illness, Melissa John's journey to find answers for herself and others. Welcome to Healing with Haley. I'm your coach, Haley Kirk. On this podcast, we dive into ways to heal, embrace, and truly love our lives. Here's my belief. So much of our suffering comes from what we believe. I'm here to help you understand your mind and question those thoughts to start your healing journey. Ready to get started? Let's go. Welcome, podcasters. I have an amazing guest. I have literally been looking forward to this episode for weeks now, and I have the amazing Melissa John on the podcast. Welcome.
Aw, thanks for having me. Hello.
Hi. So it was so crazy, y'all. I've told you guys this before, but back in March, I got this bronchitis thing, and it was a battle for like a month and a half. And our mutual friend Stephanie was like, reach out to Melissa. Like, she knows everything. And I'm like, yeah, she really does. Like, she's such like holistic and she knows all these remedies and she's amazing. And so I reached out to you and you were like, nebulizer and silver fluid thing. I can't remember the word. What is it called again?
Colloidal silver.
What is it?
Colloidal silver.
Colloidal silver. So she told me to get this stuff and a nebulizer, and I was on this witch hunt because Amazon was not giving it to me. It kept canceling my order. And I was like, no, I'm gonna get this thing. And I was so determined, and I was like texting Melissa. I was like, okay, so how much do I put? What do I do? Like she was an angel, guys. Like she really helped me figure this thing out. So what got you started on this like health journey? How did you learn about all these nebulizers and silver colloidal thingy and all that stuff? Tell us the origin.
Necessity.
Necessity. Ooh.
Necessity. Yeah. I have a very long, complex, chronic, and rare illness history. That started like really got crazy about 15 years ago. And then I have been pretty much in that chaos since.
How
And
old were you when all that started?
about 25. Oh, yeah,
Wow.
25.
Okay.
And if you rewind to when I was a kid, I do have a sensitive body. I did have a rare illness when I was 3. And I have had migraines, but otherwise I was very healthy
Yeah.
until 25. And then everything got very complicated and there weren't a whole lot of answers and or anybody to ask. And when you don't fit a normal sort of medical model, you're lucky if someone tells you we don't know. Mostly you will get gaslit, you will get things thrown at it. They will acknowledge something's off, but they won't look into it further. And you're really just left on your own to sort of figure it out. And so, yeah, I tried for about 9 years trying to sort of leverage different people. And then finally, I just got to a point where I was like, this is not working. So,
So at 25, sorry, I love details. So at 25, what was the tipping point for you where you were like, what's wrong with me? Like what were you experiencing? Like what was all that?
well, it actually started with a medical injury. So I got the HPV vaccine, and
Oh,
then yes, and then I got sick, and I
was
pretty
it
much
like
never got
immediately
better.
after? No
Within like
way.
24 hours, I started getting sick. And in the beginning, you're young, you're 25, you're like, oh, I got a cold at the doctor. Like I picked up something. And that's
Yeah.
what I thought. Um, so essentially, like at a high level, what happened was, for whatever reason and mix of variables, the vaccine at that time messed up my immune system and my nervous system. So from that point forward, I started having a lot of problems. But what it looked like at first was like I was sick all the time. So I got sick and then I was sick for 4 months straight. Um, and
Like
I
a normal cold, sick.
So it wasn't normal. Yes, but no.
Yeah.
Um, I was sick, but it kept like changing, and I kept going back to the doctor, and my symptoms were all over the place, and I also had neurological symptoms. Yeah, but you're young, and and they're kind of just like, oh, it's an infection. Like, here's some antibiotics. Like, oh, it's another
Mm.
infection. Here's some antibiotics. And so it was just kind of like, it was like about 4 months in, because I had a wedding and I went to that, and I was so sick I didn't remember the wedding. Like
You
I
were
went
just a
through the motions.
participant?
I was in the wedding.
Oh,
It wasn't
okay.
my
Yeah, yeah.
wedding. I was just there, but like I had a friend who basically like put me together to like get me out the door because I was so sick and I was so
Oh.
delirious, and that was like at that point, like, this was just like another Tuesday. So I got back, and then I was like falling asleep all the time. I would have to like nap in the middle of my off, like in the middle of the day during lunch. I would have to like nap, and I just was like
Mm.
barely kind of hanging on. And I was a good sport about it. I just, they really told me in the beginning, like, it's bad luck. Like, you're just catching a lot of things right now. And I'm like, okay. And then I got diagnosed with mono. So then they were like, oh, it's just mono. And I'm like, okay. But from that point forward, I started catching everything. I started having weird reactions to things. I got mono many more times.
Hmm.
So I started having things reactivate. Um, and then when, the second time that happened, it was like, I was like, this pattern feels familiar. So I was like, I think I have mono again. So I went back, they're like, you can't get mono again. And I'm like, okay, but like I've been sick for a bit and it feels like mono and it's just a blood test. Like, can you just check?
Yeah.
So they did, and they're like, oh, yeah, you have mono again. And I was like, I thought you said that can't happen. And then they were like, well, sometimes it can. So it was just that. Like for a lot of
Mm.
years, it was that. It was something would happen. You're too young for that. That's weird. That doesn't usually happen. I would have weird reactions to things. So even if I had like an allergy to something, it wasn't like a normal allergy. It would show up in a weird way. Like I once had this infection all over my face. It was insanity, but it was just thing after thing after thing. In the first few years, I would have breaks where like in my head, I'm like, oh, maybe I'm better, but it was just constant. And then what happens is when your immune system's off and things are reactivating, you're just not able to bounce back as much. Things just kind of start piling. So like about 4 years in, I get shingles at the age of 29. And then not only that, even though we caught it early, I get severe nerve damage from shingles that I still have today. It's been 10 years.
Tell us
Um,
a little bit. What is shingles? Just give us a
so
little.
yeah, because most people don't really think that much about it until they're older. But shingles
Mm.
is essentially the chickenpox virus. But what happens is when we get chickenpox, it goes and when we fight it off, it goes and it hides in our nerves. And then what happens is like typically it's as we get older when our immune system comes down and maybe there's some sort of stress or something like that, it flares up. And so, but it's incredibly painful because it's in the nerve that flares up.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's neurological pain conditions are in like the top five of like highest pain things. Yeah, they're wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. So
Dang.
that totally changed the game. And so over time, like I'm just losing functionality. I'm losing energy. When shingles came in, now I can't sleep through the night. The pain is so bad, like if the air condition turns on in the middle of the night, it wakes me up. Um, the air on my skin. And so that adds stress to the body. And so then there's no way to fix that. You can only manage it. And all of the solutions to manage it, it was at best taking the edge off. Like I cannot put into words how painful that was. And at the same time, I'm still getting sick a lot and I'm still like, there's still 1,000 things happening. And now I have to be on medication to manage the pain, but it doesn't ever like actually get rid of the pain. So about 2 years after that, I think my nervous system, and I still had issues. Like I still had other symptoms and things were breaking and I would get sick all the time and I never felt good. And then about 18 months after that, or ish. Yeah, like somewhere in the middle of 2016, around August, I got like three viruses like once a month. And then my body just could not recover. And suddenly, like I could not, like I had already been like losing functionality and it, being in pain all the time takes, it drains your energy in ways that you don't
Yes.
even
No.
know. Yeah. I mean,
Ugh.
you feel it and it comes out in weird ways, but in ways you don't even know. So at that point, though, like I couldn't like show up the same in my life. Like, and I was working in corporate, I was a technical project manager, and I couldn't even like make it through the workday. And that was a month of, I got what seemed like a minor virus for like a food poisoning for like a couple of days at the beginning of August. And by the end of August, I still couldn't make it through like a full day of work well. And then my system just really started declining. And so the long story short of that is somewhere in the middle of that, I got diagnosed with like Lyme disease and all of its co-infections. Um, for me, I think really what had just happened is that I probably had gotten bit a long time ago, like when I was a kid, because that was the last time I pulled a tick off me. But that my immune system just couldn't keep anything in check anymore. And so that was its own journey of even getting answers. There's a lot of controversy around that. I was declining neurologically. There was so much going on. And so that was really the first diagnosis I'd ever had of what could be explaining like my ongoing experience of illness. Up until that point, you couldn't really, I remember the first time I asked, like, could the vaccine have done something? And that is not a
Not
thing.
an okay question to
You
ask.
want to, yeah, that's not an okay question to ask. So I was really quiet about that for a while. But so that was the first, like, oh, like this is the reason. And so then I took what I thought would be like a sabbatical from my corporate career. I thought it was going to be like an 18-month sabbatical. Like, oh, okay. Like, I just have to like get rid of these bacteria and these infections and everything is going to go back to normal. I finally have an answer. Like, if I had a penny for the many times I think I found the answer, the first time they're like, it's mono. I'm like, oh my God, it's mono. Like, I just have to make it through mono and we're going to be good. No.
Wow.
And so that's what I thought. But that was not how it went.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the end, I got diagnosed with so many things. I've had like 20 some diagnoses. I just got worse over
After
time.
the Lyme's. So Lyme's was the very first diagnosis. So
It
then what?
was the first one that was supposed to explain why I had neurological and immunological illness.
What is a neurological illness? Like, what's an example of that?
Well, there's all different types. So some people have like neurodegenerative like types. You can have like neurological symptoms like cognitive disruptions. You can have our nervous system is responsible for all of the processes in our bodies that we don't think about. So all of the autonomic things like our heart rate and our digestion and things like that. So one thing I got diagnosed with 2 years after that was POTS. And dysautonomia essentially is, it comes up a lot under cardiology, but it's not typically a heart problem. It's really a nervous system communication problem. So what happens is your nervous system is not communicating properly with the rest of your body, so nothing is regulated. So I could just stand up and my heart rate would spike like I was doing the hardest workout of my life.
Right.
Right. And what people don't know is that takes a huge toll on your system. And so, yeah, when I say like I've had like 50, 60, 70 like serious symptoms, 20 some diagnoses, like I pretty much left my corporate career in 2017 and I have been healing since. Like my full-time job has been figuring out how to like function again. Um, and you try so many different experts, and what ends up happening is there's certain things, certain labels of illnesses that explain certain groups of symptoms, and then there's other ones that don't. So you're trying to find answers because you're trying to find solutions. And so what happened was they treated Lyme for a bit, and then when you have so many things going on, it's really like a big chaotic storm at first. And then as you start like, trying to pick out different things that you're treating and you're making progress, you start to like notice patterns and you start to kind of understand like, oh, these are my infection symptoms and these are my POTS symptoms and these are my myalgic encephalomyelitis symptoms. But it's such a storm at first that you're trying to like figure out what it all is. It's hard to find help. And so I went into it thinking like, okay, I just have to get rid of these infections. And so that was the plan. And I had a pick line. Like it was not an easy journey to try to get some of these really nasty infections handled. And it's not an easy journey when you have neurological symptoms mixed in with these infections, because if you raise inflammation and you have neuroinflammation, it's not a good time. However, like I said, I thought it'd be 18 months. So I was like, I can, I can do this. And then about like around like April of 2018, I could tell we had made a lot of progress on the infection symptoms, but neurologically I was not better and I was getting worse. And that meant like the this is when I ended up getting diagnosed with POTS and like EDS and some of these other things. Because we'd made progress on the infections, but now here was this whole other cohort that had been suspected before, but when there's so many things on the list, you kind of try to have to pick the top priority and you focus on that. But now those things I was doing much better, but I still can't function. I can't use my brain the way I need to. I can't physically and cognitively function at the level I'm used to. A lot of people didn't see that because they would see me like on social media, but they wouldn't see the other 23 hours of the day. Um, or that I had to be horizontal a lot because of one of the things with POTS is blood pooling. You have to be careful. You might pass out. You might, yeah, like showers were hard. I couldn't, there was a period where when I took a shower, that was a thing I did for not just that day, but like a few days because it took that long to recover from a shower.
That's
So,
crazy.
yeah, so life really came down to survival. And so the big thing that kind of I had been trying natural things. I had been trying doctors. I had seen so many specialists. I had, tried different modalities from the very beginning outside of just allopathic medicine because I grew up around people different cultures, different perspectives. So I had been doing that all along, but like nothing clearly, I was still very sick. So what kind of really like got me was I get these new diagnoses and I'm like, great. What do we do about it? Yay, we have more answers. What do we do about it? And the general consensus was like, yeah, we don't really know. Like, we could just give you medicine to manage it. Yeah.
That's nuts.
And after like 8 years of this, and all I'm doing from 2010 to 20 like 18 is declining in some form. Because even when I make progress, something else breaks. And what led me to getting diagnosed with POTS was suddenly like my motility stopped. So for like months, I would never be hungry, but I would eat because I know I have to eat, and food would just sit in my stomach all day. And then at the end of the day, it would come up because it's not supposed to just sit in your stomach. So that was what led me to go back and be like, hey, I don't have infection symptoms, but I have a problem. I can't function, I can't use my brain, I have to be horizontal all the time. And for some reason, like I can't keep food down. Like, what's happening? But all of that stuff is your nervous system. Like your gut knows to like contract and move things through because it's your nervous system. And so your heart rate is your nervous system, the blood pooling and what tells your veins, like you're standing up and to constrict in certain places. It's all your body working together. And all of those communication pathways in my system were a hot mess. And so suddenly it's like, I'm like, I have been doing this for years. I stepped away from my career. Right about that time, my job is like, hey, we can't keep your job any longer, because you haven't been here, for a year. And so like I'm officially losing my job and I'm like, I'm not better. I can't function. And I have no answers. I have no hope. And then I had built a patient community um before I crashed in 2016, earlier in 2016, because the nerve damage had really taken over a lot of my life. So I needed other people to talk to about it because the average person doesn't get it. And there's so much of a limit that you can share. So I had created a community, really just by telling people what I needed to hear, early in 2016. That actually was They were actually the ones that helped me confirm my Lyme diagnosis, ironically, because my first test was negative, and they were like, you should look at that again. There's a lot of controversy around this disease. And I was like, what are you talking about? But anyway, so because I was already tapped into the chronic health community, and because when I had created my community, I didn't have a diagnosis, I really just spoke to the experience. I actually had people with all different type of illnesses in my world. And so I had people with all of these illnesses as I had just been diagnosed with. And so I'm talking to them, I'm looking at the evidence and I'm like, there's no path forward. Like that is actually going to get me to what I want, which is to function. Like nobody has any answers. Everybody's just guessing about how to handle this. Everyone's just managing through it. And so I just had this moment where I was like, there has got to be a fucking way. Like, all the evidence tells me that there isn't. I'm pretty much told, like, sorry, we could just give you more medicine. But at this point, it's been 8 years, and I'm like, every time they've given me a solution, I feel like even if it helps me, five other things just break, like in time. And so I just was like, I'm tired. At that point, I felt like I had already climbed like 5 mountains. And now I'm left with, and there's nothing we can do with this. And I don't have very much of a quality of life. I'm very good at coping. So I was very positive. I, created content. I talked about my story, but like my actual like live in the world life was really non-existent. So I was like, this is no life. And I just kind of was at this place where I was like, you know what? Fuck this. Like I started looking at patterns and I'm like, I think some of these medications probably added to my neurotoxicity. I think maybe some of the treatments were maybe too harsh. Maybe like there's I'm like, there's got to be another way. I had already looked at things outside of the allopathic model, but what I have found is everyone approaches health the same way, which is essentially symptom whack-a-mole. And it's because it's how we logically think about it. We're like, I have a boo-boo here, so like I need to fix it here. But that's not actually really like having all those viruses and bacterial infections for like years navigating them had taught me so much about like that's not really how it works. Like it's not this linear process. You really have to support the whole body. Everything's working like really intricately together. And there's this balance, like even when you're killing things off, you can set yourself back so much if you overdo it. And so I had learned all of that because I was so sensitive. I used to go into shock a lot. Lots of crazy things happened. So when you're so sensitive and you have to work within this tiny window, you really kind of learn to like optimize everything. And so I'd already had that knowledge and I just was like, I'm just gonna trust my gut. And my gut is like, I don't think they know how to fix me. And I think it's worth it to bet on me. And I'm like, and you know, what's the worst that can happen? I die, but would I rather die because they fucked up or would I rather die because I fucked up? And I was like, I'd rather die because I fucked up. And
Yeah.
so it took me to like the end of the year, but from like 2019 forward, because I had already been doing all my own research and I would bring my research to the doctor, and that was always kind of hit or miss how they responded. So I just decided like after 2019, like I'm not going to say yes to anything that isn't 100% like in my gut feels like a yes. And that was a
I
year
like
I
that.
just I flipped everything. Like
How
I
old were you then?
2019. How old am I now? I'm 40 now. So I was how many years ago was that?
Like
7?
34, 34-ish?
Yeah, probably. Like I don't even, I have no sense of time at the
Like
current.
your mid like your young 30s, like your young to mid
Yeah,
30s.
yeah, yeah. I was,
Okay.
yeah, 30 something.
Yeah.
Yeah, young 30s. Yeah, which just sucks, you know, like at this point, like most of my friends are already married, they're already doing things. Like I can't even work right now. I'm just like, this life sucks. And I'm either going to fail, but like it will be, you know, my choice, or I'm going to figure it out. And so I just doubled down on every skill I have. Like I have degrees in psychology and communication. I'm a PMP because I was project manager. And I research, I systemized, I experimented, I meticulously like and then I simplified. And then I just really built this like massive trust in my body and reversed everything. That's why I know a lot of things. And
Wow.
I shouldn't say everything. I'm still healing, but I have improved in a way that I did not know was possible because there's a point where you don't realize how bad you feel because you have felt that bad for that long. You forget what it feels like to feel good. Um, and that has been actually one of the biggest like mind fucks for me,
Yeah.
the way up and realizing like when I would say I feel bad, that was like negative 500 compared to, and you don't know it. There's a point where like, I mean, you know, because you can't do things, but you really don't know. You forget how it feels to feel good. And yeah. So that's my very long story.
Well, okay. So tell us, you said a word, allopathic. Can you tell us what you mean when you say that?
It's just like the standard Western model. So
Okay.
the Western way of looking at health and what has been normalized as opposed to how things were done, you know, back in the day, in like Eastern and alternative philosophy. That's what I mean when I'm saying allopathic. And a lot of that has subconsciously, we have taken on how we look at our bodies, how we look at health, how we approach health by that model. And in fact, when you challenge it in any way, and you don't even have to challenge it in a big way, you just have to ask a question that falls outside of this almost like dogmatic view of health, you almost just get immediately like dismissed, gaslit, assumed as crazy. And it's been funny for me because a lot of things that I really like looked into and would have seemed super crazy and out there, especially years ago, are very trendy now. So like, I started doing vagus nerve stimulation in 2019, but I
What
had
is
known
that?
about
Hold on.
that.
What is that?
So our it, in terms of practically, it can be many things, but our vagus nerve is the biggest cranial nerve in our body. And
Cranial meaning your head.
it is the nerve that travels like almost throughout. It's the biggest nerve, but it travels like through the rest of your body. And
Wow.
so it plays a big role in your autonomic processes. So
Which is
I
like you said it was like the heart because we're not consciously like telling it what to do. Is that
Yeah,
what
like
the
how
autonomic?
many beats to beat per minute, or where to keep your blood when you're standing. Like I don't have to be like, blood, stay in my head so I don't pass out. We're not supposed to do that. Or have, well, I can't do that if my body's not doing it. But your autonomic nervous system controls all of the things that your body does, like sort of like naturally that we don't think about, your motility. And I had come across it actually years before, but because I've always been a little bit of a health nerd, so I'd see things that were out there. And the first time I really came across it was through Wim Hof breathing, but that was a long time ago. But what had happened is I essentially like somewhere I saw the term vagus nerve, and what I would just do is I would read and learn about the body because mine was not working properly. So I was just trying to understand like what's breaking because they couldn't tell me in a lot of cases. Like even though, they could be like, yeah, your immune system's not working properly. Great. How and how do we fix it? If whatever's happening with you does not fit in an already organized, perfect little picture, you're just on your own. They're like, yeah, we don't know. Like, yeah, we recognize that's off, but and there's no help. Like nobody, everybody sort of has this idea like if you get sick, there's going to be a Dr. House who's going to be like, I'm going to figure this out.
I love Dr. House. I was binge watching him.
I love Dr. House. He does not exist in the real.
Oh no. I want him
So
to exist in every state.
yeah, it doesn't like that. The experience of patients is not that typically. If you don't fit something textbook, they don't really know how to help you. Um, and you're lucky if they say, I don't know. A lot of the time you will get gaslit. It's not that
Well,
bad.
it's kind of interesting, right? Because I mean, if anyone has seen the show Dr. House, they are first they start off with we don't know, let's find out, let's do these tests, let's do experimental surgery, let's do let's go into their house and see what's in their environment, right? Like they're very kind of break the law, don't care, let's figure out what's going on. And it's so cool. It's inspiring. But yeah, I think that is super interesting that was your experience.
Yeah, you are not gonna find that. And it's not the reason for that could be a whole conversation. There are a lot of things that contribute to why that is. A lot of it is how our system is. And also, doctors really aren't incentivized to do that for a variety of reasons. Not to mention the way insurance schedules things, they can't spend that kind of time with people.
Right.
So you're just for many, many reasons, if you end up in a situation like mine, aside from symptom whack-a-mole, which is, oh, let's
That's
try to
so funny.
band-aid
I
it.
love that.
Yeah. Aside from trying to band-aid it with a medication, and if you're lucky, it'll maybe manage it, but they don't really know the game of healing. They're amazing at crisis. So
Yeah.
if you have an accident or a acute crisis, but most of healing is not that. And the allopathic model looks at the body at a very like through pieces. If you've ever been sick and you've had multiple experts, you'll know they don't talk to each other. You have to try to put it together. So I would just try to learn about the body. And I started following path of destruction, which was I lost my voice for a year randomly. Nobody could tell me why. My motility stopped. And I was looking at this nerve and I was like, my immune system wasn't working, like it regulates inflammation and all. And I was like, my autonomic nervous system is fucked up. I'm like, oh, something is definitely up with this nerve, like 1000%. So I learned that, you can essentially, how I would describe it is you can essentially exercise it like you would a muscle. That's really what you're doing kind of when you're doing vagus nerve stimulation. And there's all different things, ways you can do it. If you Google it, that's kind of a more trendy topic now. It wasn't in 2019 and it definitely wasn't before that, but now you can find all sorts of things on the vagus nerve on Instagram. It's everywhere now, but it wasn't. And so I've had this interesting journey where I was experimenting with things that were not well known. You couldn't really find people to help you with it. You really kind of had to figure it out yourself and
So tell us what you figured out. So like you went on this your journey yourself and you found this somatic nerve stimulation. What else did you do? And how, like, what did you do? How did you find it? Like, talk to the healing part about it.
um well, this was essentially like my full-time job in between just surviving. So I approached it like I would a project manager. I researched, I'd learn about the body. I tracked patterns. So I would track patterns in my flares because that would tell me, that would teach me about them. And so from that, I would learn a few things would happen. I would see things grouped together, and then that would inform my research. And then I could also figure out what might make me worse. So a great example that a lot of people don't know is if you're a chronic illness patient in any regard, whether it's chronic pain or illness, uh, you'll probably notice that your flares track with the weather. So if barometric pressure changes, I also like I've gotten migraines, so it's more known about migraines now. But patients like us have been talking about this for years, and people would just be like, "Yeah, you're crazy." But now it's becoming more known. So what happens, I would just like track patterns. I'm trying to pay attention to look for groups of information that can inform like what I'm learning about the body and give me ideas about where to look. And then from there, I would kind of, I'd see something that I'm like, oh, this seems like it's part of the problem, like the vagus nerve. So then I was like, okay, how do I make it work better? And then I would research ideas around that and current sort of just theories about that. And none of it was like super trendy or known. So you're kind of just like looking for ideas. And then what I would do is I would look for like, I would always with my gut, but I would be like, I'd feel like, yeah, I'm onto something here. So I'm just going to experiment. And then I would experiment. And it's such not a linear process. Every great thing I did for my body made me worse first. So you really have to learn to play the long game. You have to learn how to hold like now and later, and the space in between is what you're really going to learn if something's really good for you or not. Then you have to learn how to use different tools. So it's a very long and involved process. So when I recommend things now, it's like, well, I've been working with this thing for years, and but it wasn't an easy process. And then I just iterated on it, and I knew I wanted to quit all my pharma things. I wanted to pull my PIC line. I started in 2020. It took me a few years.
What does
Um,
that mean? Pull a pick line.
I had a permanent IV for 4.5 years. Yeah, when we met, I had just pulled it 1 month prior when we met.
Stop. In the Zook
Yes.
thing, right?
I think it was a Viva La Bachata, like Halloween or something.
Oh, that's
Remember your
right, it
Ivy and
was.
I was Wonder Woman? Yeah, it's
Yes.
September 28th, 2021 was when I pulled my line and we met like at Halloween. Yeah.
A month later. So you had a permanent IV. What does that mean to have a permanent IV? What is it doing? What does that mean?
Yeah, so it was right here and the tube goes to your heart. And so it was originally put in to fight like system-wide infection. Um, and especially because that um, things can be more effective intravenously and also cross the blood-brain brain barrier easier. So that was originally why I was put in for some of the Lyme treatment. Also, a management tool for POTS is you have to be overhydrated. And what that does is increases your blood volume. So because your body is not good at regulating things, when you have like more blood volume, it just kind of offsets symptoms. So that would just give me like a little bit quality of life. So after like some of the harsher meds, which were a little rough, the PICC line were for fluids because it didn't have the same effect as for me just drinking. Like I could drink water or electrolytes and it didn't have the same effect as the line because I was just really sick. Like I used to go into shock easily, all sorts of, my body was just very sensitive. And so the line made it so that I could have like a little bit more of a quality of life. Um, and yeah, it's kind of, when I had it, I was just like, whatever, like I got this. But in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, that was kind of intense. It was literally
Honestly. So,
intense.
okay, so you pull the pick line 2021, and then what were like other things that you were like kind of testing and trying to like figure out for your healing?
Yeah. I've done so much. The first part of my journey was like learning how to live with active viruses and infections because I couldn't, it wasn't like take an antibiotic and they're done. It's not how it works. So it was like navigating that. And then the second part was trying to figure out how to, I realized at some point that probably a lot of the things I was using was contributing to the like toxicity of my body, that there was just a lot of crap in my body. And I just had a theory that if I just continued to help it like clean out, which is a mix of stopping things. So very, very, very slowly quit my pharma meds before my PICC line came out, because when I went into shock, that was also a very useful tool to have. So what I would do is I would look into the theory of why that medication would work, try to understand the mechanisms of what it was doing in the body, and then I would look for a natural alternative that could do something similar.
Can you give
Um,
an example?
but like for example was I waited to do my PICC line because that is what kept my body as stable as it could be.
Yeah.
And every time I came off of medication, I got worse. So I would have to see what was really going on underneath the medication. And then from there, I would look for something to support my body. And then I could tell I was getting better. It wasn't, nobody else could see it, but like I could feel it in subtle ways. So I knew I was on the right track. And I just kind of kept at it. And I trusted if I gave my body time and kept just trying to nourish it well and put the right minerals in and make sure I'm balanced when I'm making changes, that things would reverse. So by the time my PICC line was the last thing, I was like, I'm going to keep my line until I can function without it. So I'd already been coming off things, I'd already been doing stuff. So I would just do an experiment. I would do an experiment. So I would do an experiment and like not try to use it and just try to chug a crap ton of water and electrolytes and see like, do I still feel, within my range? And then, it'd be no. So then I would just give it time and then I would try different things and eventually you kind of find the right thing and you're like, this is good enough. And a lot of it is faith and trust and intuition. I know that's like probably the least thing people want to hear because I think people like certainty with health, but I really didn't have any. My doctors didn't agree with when I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna quit everything. Like nobody really agreed with that because that's their model of the world.
Yeah.
And I would never suggest anyone do anything like that quickly, especially if you're sensitive.
Yeah.
But there wasn't anybody who was going to help me do it. So I would take pills apart and count beads because I was that sensitive. I couldn't just stop things. My
Wow.
body just, it didn't take very much to throw it off. Um, and so, yeah, You lean on other people who've been super sick because you can't take the advice of normal people because they're like, what do you mean? Just stop it. I'm like, that's not gonna work. I'm probably gonna go into
Mm,
shock. Like
right,
that.
right. Man,
But
so like I'm looking at so many things. Like when I'm listening to your story, have you ever heard of Lorenzo's Oil, the
mm,
movie?
I don't think so.
Oh my, it's literally making me think of you. It's with Nick Nolte and Susan Sarandon. And essentially their son is diagnosed with a rare and fatal disease called ALD.
Hmm.
And they're just like they're really smart parents, and they go in like cut their jobs, and they eventually find a treatment that they call Lorenzo's oil. Like it's such a cool story. You should watch it. It's a good movie. It's so good. It's like heart-wrenching and like oh, but it's just I think the other thing that's kind of coming up for me as I listen to your story is I don't think people realize the crisis that America has. It's like as of 2024, approximately 129 million Americans, nearly 40% of the US population lives with at least one major chronic disease.
Yep.
That's nuts. So, I mean, like that's so much of our people. And it's like we didn't used to be this sick. Like we didn't used to be this sick. And for me, like I did not go through anything even remotely close to what you went through, but I had this bronchitis for a month and a half. And they gave me the antibiotics, which I know I actually am very skeptic of antibiotics as well. But I was like, well, let me just lean on what they're saying, see what happens. Like, I don't know what else to do. And I don't want to take the time to figure it out for myself. So I'm like, let me just lean on what they're saying. And then like I just wasn't getting better. I wasn't getting better. It was like I would get better and then I'd get worse. And then I get better, and then I get worse. And like there was just this one lingering symptom where like my lungs were hurting and I was coughing and I was just like, I don't want to get other people sick because it was acute bronchitis, which was like contagious. So I was like, I'm not gonna go to my gym and pretend to live my normal life and infect other people. Like that seems very selfish. And like I just felt so bad because I'm a mom. And so I was like, how do I exercise my son? Because he needs to be regulated. And it was just, I was like, oh my God, I think the reason I'm like naturally really happy is because I feel really good. Like I
Yeah.
physically feel really good. And like I was going through so much sadness and so much like girl, I like was stickler. I was stickler about my eating and like sunlight exposure. Like I was just trying to really like I was eating like turmeric chicken soup and broth, and I went to like farmers markets and got like
Good
boom.
stuff.
Yeah, but like it wasn't working. And so it was so frustrating. And then I just went through these bouts of like eating all this crap and sugar because I was like, man, fuck it. Like I was eating so healthy and then it's not working, so whatever. And of course, that wasn't like the best thing for my body, but I just can't even empathize. Like, that was just a month. And you're talking about, you said 8 to 10 years?
I'm still healing, so at this point, this will be year 15 since the
15
vaccine.
years. God damn. That's
Yeah.
like, my heart goes out to you and 240 million Americans that are experiencing what you're feeling. Like, to me, it's wild. It's wild that health is wealth. Like health
Mm.
is wealth. That's what I learned, and I'm just like so stickler now. It's like, the doctors are very limited, right? And what they know, and we can go into like why that could be, but they are. Like they just don't know.
Yeah.
It's very clear. They don't. They don't
Yeah.
know. And then I don't know if I told you this part. I was in the emergency room this past Sunday.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
no, you
I was
didn't.
in the emergency room and my chest, like my chest was excruciating pain.
Mhm.
Oh my God, I couldn't even move. And like I was looking at my symptoms and on ChatGPT, and you might have pleurisy, you might have PM and pulmonary embolism, and all this. I was like, oh my, and they're like, you need to call 911. And it was crazy because I was watching my roommate's daughter too. So I was like, I had my son, I had my roommate's daughter, and I was like, oh my God, like I'm having an emergency. They're telling me to call 911. The ChatGPT was. And so I go in there. My roommate comes to watch both our kids. I go in, I get ambulanced to the hospital. They're, taking care of me. It felt really good, by the way, to like have all this, like, how are you? Duh, 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 duh. And I was like, oh, like this feels nice. Like people care about what's going on with me. And they were like doing echoes. They were doing all kinds of tests. And then at the end of it, they were like, yeah, you're good. And I was
Yeah.
like, no, I'm not. That was not normal. That was not normal. And so the crazy thing, I had to go through my chart and pick out the blood work. So I was like, I was looking at all the blood work and I was like, they're like, this is within normal range, this is not. And they found a calcifite on my lung. So it was like, why didn't you guys tell me that? And I kept asking the doctors questions. I was like, I don't understand why you guys are letting me go because I really had like it was bad. Like there's something wrong with me. And they were like, essentially what the ER is here to do is to make sure that you're not dying. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And that they're like, you need to like, and I was like, so if I understand what you're saying, you're telling me I need to go to a specialist. And then she's like, yes. And I was like, okay, it's just weird. It's weird. And I understand why, because they're like all this like legal, they kind of have to do the legal thing. So I get how their hands are bound, but it's kind of frustrating too. It's like, why couldn't you talk me through my results and like pinpoint these things to me? Like I had to go in and look at my stuff and research what the findings were and like what that thing means and da 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 da. And I was just like, that was just a tiny thing that happened. And I'm thinking about your story and I'm just like, man, you got 50 symptoms. I had one, and it just blows my mind that 240 million Americans have a similar story to yours. That's nuts. That's nuts to me.
Yeah, it is. And it's been the other thing I'll say is, honestly, now how I look at health and how I view the body, and really it's a whole different way of life and thinking. And I got to figure out how to, teach people it in a way. But the reality is it's really changing how you think about things. And that's a lot harder than people think it is.
Right. Oh,
Um,
totally. Yeah,
it's
because there's those
looking at
neural pathways.
Yeah, and it's
Right.
looking at things totally differently. And that's really it's a lot harder because of just the settled way that everything is and the way people naturally have all of these like assumptions and stories about their body because it's just sort of what they've grown up seeing or hearing. So, you have this assumption like I get sick, I'm gonna go to the doctor, they're gonna figure it out, and then I'm gonna know what to do about it. And honestly, like your case is normal. Like I had to meticulously go through my medical records to learn things to make sure that they were correct. I mean, I have trauma with that. Like I don't want to look at my medical record anymore because you have to at that time. But when that's your life for years and insurance companies and fighting for, why can I not go see this person who they said is going to help me? And then you fight to get in and then they can't help you. Or, they're so, I really, it's a shame. And the reason why is there's a lot as to why, but it's a shame because at the end of the day, it really ends up being, aside from finding the I wouldn't even say it's finding the right things. A lot of health becomes like lifestyle changes because unfortunately our medical system isn't really set up to support us as well as we need it to for healing some of this systemic chronic disease going on. Obviously for like an accident, an ER situation, there's no place anybody would rather be. But for the actual problem we're seeing in our world, which is people are unwell and they have chronic unwellness, like
Yeah.
that's not normal. That a lot of it's systemic because we are just exposed to things that we at a rate at which we have never seen before. And to change that stuff is hard because it's wrapped up in our convenience, in our busy lives, in our schedules.
Hmm.
It's very hard and it can be overwhelming. When you start to look into it, you're suddenly like, wait, I have to change my entire life. And so I think that's a reason why a lot of people don't do it unless they either have to or and even then change costs money and like there's so much that goes into these problems. And it's a shame because when COVID happened, I had already been dealing with a compromised immune system for 10 years. So I knew what it was like to deal with chronic viruses and infections all the time. And I also knew like what happens is I was watching the health of our society just decline because of everything going on. But people don't listen to sick people. So I would talk to people about it, like, people I care about. And you would think that people who saw my journey and then started to see, have me turn it around would listen, but like, nope, like not really. It really wasn't like, so it was this weird, it's painful to watch because people are making choices and I'm like, it's not my say to tell you to do something different, right? But I'm like watching, like being like, oh gosh, I really hope like this doesn't hurt you in the long run. So it's been hard to watch like since COVID because there were a lot of outcomes that I predicted simply because I had lived a story for 10 years that was so far outside the bell curve. And I've had to look at things differently. And just by the way that they handled it, like healing is such a full body thing. So, for example, like fear does not help you. The stress of that lowers your immune system. So, when they're leading with that, that was one thing back during COVID. I was like, oh my God, this is going to make things worse. Like, so there's just so many nuances that seem like they're not a big deal. Like, oh, people need to be informed. So, we have to tell them and we have to, but when you lead with fear, you're subconsciously also making things worse. You kind of have this balance of
Are you aware of the work by Joe Dispenza?
I'm aware of it, but I learned about it a little bit after some of the stuff. I, I'm a huge neuroscience nerd, and also that gets all into like the metaphysical and a lot of his work too. So, yes, you
Have
have.
you ever considered going to one of his workshops, like his seminar things?
Um, I it's I think I'm just taking a break from stuff related to healing right now, but I have thought about it. I just haven't made it there.
Yeah, yeah. I love outside thinkers like Joe
Yeah,
Dispenza. He's a doctor who
oh,
literally healed himself with his mind. He was paralyzed.
yeah.
And it's like documented. And what's cool is he's a scientist. I think his specialty is in chiropractic, I think. In chiropractic surgery, I think is what he was. I can't remember, but he has people wear like um I don't know if it's like sensors or some kind of testing thing at
Hmm.
the beginning of the seminar and the end of the seminar, and he tests like their health levels and they're just
Hmm.
like through the roof. It's like crazy. And the other person I really like is Casey Means. Have you
Yeah.
heard of her? Do you like
Yeah.
her work?
I do. I do. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of these people have become essentially like since COVID, a lot of this stuff has become like more known. So like her work, his work, but there's really a lot of people. There's a lot of people. It's become political now.
Who are your favorites? I'm so curious. I want to hear your favorites.
Um, I mean, for me, like a lot of my story happened and then I came across these people.
Yeah.
But one of the ones that really made me realize that like there was more to this stuff that science just hadn't caught up yet. And what I mean by that is not necessarily science, but um, there's a lot of money in what actually gets funded and studied and stuff. So really like
Yeah, it's not profitable for a
science, right?
society to
Yeah.
be healthy.
But kind of similar to it's a similar sort of idea to Joe Dispenza. So the guy I mentioned earlier, Wim Hof, he's known for like a lot of like the cold therapy. He's the one that really made cold therapy big, but he's been doing it for way longer, like before it became like a wellness trend. Um, and so so his story before him, they had always thought that we don't have any control over our autonomic nervous system. Um, but his work essentially is essentially training the vagus nerve. It's training your nervous system. And so they had like he and I remember when he came out, like a lot of people thought he was crazy because he'll like walk around in snow like pretty much half naked. And so a lot of his work you would see would probably align a lot with Joe Dispenza's because there's a lot of breath and there's mindfulness, a lot of these same kind of tools. But what was cool about him was that he was essentially because he then like didn't get sick a lot, all these kinds of things. So he essentially like was like, this is gonna help keep you healthy. And they did some sort of study where they like injected him or and some I think it wasn't just him. I want to say it was like a few of his students too, but I don't remember. So I'd have to look it up again. But this it stuck with me is that they essentially like tried to make him sick, like inject him with something. And he did all of his, what he does, and it didn't take.
That is so cool.
Yeah, so they essentially learned like they was always kind of thought like you can't have an impact over your autonomic nervous system. Like it just runs. And it's like, oh, actually, but you can. But it's not like it's not just you're like, hey, work. Like a lot of what he's doing is you're essentially toning your vagus nerve, you're toning your nervous system. And this is a lot of these things now we see like a lot about polyvagal theory and vagus nerve stimulation. A lot of these things kind of stem back to these like one-off supposed crazy, I'm putting that in quotes, people who just had it like for, I don't know if you know his story. His story was that I believe his like wife or something committed suicide and that I think like wrecked him or something and then he had this like intuitive whim to like jump in the freezing water and like it totally came out of this like you would think he's crazy when he tells a story except now look where we are. um so I remember that story stuck with me and I would hold on to things like that. There's another one who it's going to sound out there, but Anita Morjani, her story was something like she had cancer and I think she was terminal. And I feel bad that I don't remember all the details as much as I should, but I came across these people a long time ago. So it's like, this is the gist of it. Excuse me if it's not the perfect story, but I know it's on Google so you can find it. But her story, she had cancer and I want to say it was like like something pretty bad. And then she had a near-death experience where she in her near-death experience, she connected like with her father who had passed, who I think maybe she had like felt like he had always rejected her or something. Don't quote me on that, but there was something there. And in it, she was able to like resolve that thing with him and kind of like come back into wholeness. And then she woke up and then she went into remission. So what I used to do is I didn't have anybody with my particular evidence of things of reversing at that time, but I would look for things like that because this is where I'm like the mind and the emotional play so much. And so the number one thing I tell people is you have to believe there's a way because if you don't, your brain is closed to that and it won't find it because it won't be able to see it if it's right in front of you. So, because one of my original degrees is in psychology, I've been into this stuff from the beginning of time. So, what I did to kind of hack my brain was I would look for stories like that that just showed me like there is shit we don't know.
Yeah.
And if there's shit we don't know, that means there's a fucking way back. And then
Yeah.
I did absolutely. I would align like my mental, emotional, physical. Like a lot of people like to know about the physical stuff because there's this mindset of like, what's the tool? What's the tool? And there's so many things. What I try to tell people is there's so many paths to healing. Like there's so many great tools. You don't need like the right one. What I would suggest is that you go for low risk, high reward tools. So silver, what I suggested to you, in my opinion, it's one of the most amazing low risk, high reward tools when you look at other things that do similar things. So if you look at an antibiotic, that can really mess up your microbiome because it's kind of like taking a nuke to your microbiome. So you don't want to do that a lot. Silver typically is absorbed higher in the GI tract, so it doesn't have the same effect typically. So what ends up happening is there's tools out there that are like adjacent to allopathic medicine. And to be fair, most allopathic medicine is built actually on a lot of natural medicine. They just sort of extract it and put it in higher concentrations. So if you can, there's so many tools, right? And that's why I'm like, the things that I see really stop people are the aside is not believing it's possible, believing what the doctor tells you when they tell you like, well, this is permanent. Like, okay, well, now your brain's never going to look for another solution. And that's
Oh
okay if
my
you're
God.
okay with that. Like if you're
Yeah,
okay with that, that's great. But when you're living the kind of life I'm living, I'm not okay with that. Like I was like, this is not
right.
a life.
I have to add on to what you're saying. This is so true. I just recently came across a woman. Her name's Ellen Langer. Have you heard from her? Heard about her?
Or I have not heard
You
about.
would love her work. She's a Harvard tenured professor studying the concept of uncertainty and how
Ooh.
much we dog on it. You would love the
I
case
would
study.
love her because I think there's so much in the unknown and the unseen.
Yeah.
And we just have to prime our brain for it. We have to tell ourselves the story that it's a good thing, and we have to put good like feelings behind it and trust. And oh my God. Oh, you have to
And
send me. Sorry, I'm not going to remember, so please send me her.
I will, but like just to
Yes.
toggle on what you were saying, she would grab these groups of people. If you told someone they were pre-diabetic, they
Yep.
would almost like 60-80% become diabetic shortly after the pre-diabetic diagnoses. And the same thing happened in cancer patients. So
Yep.
it was with cancer patients where if you told them they had beginning cancer,
Mhm.
like they didn't have it, but they were in like the beginning stages of it, you would like mastatize like crazy. And it was like, oh my goodness. So, and she said, you want to know the best drug out there?
Your brain.
Placebo.
Oh, yeah.
Placebo. She's like, if I could just like put a label on some sugar pills and send it out and be like, your illness will be cured. Just take this 2 times daily. She's like, I would be the richest woman in the world because if you truly believe a medication will work, there's so much with that, like what you're saying, that mind to body connection. And it's crazy how much what you're saying, that belief system, if you believe there's a cure out there, like you'll find it or find a way to be on the journey of healing. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is it's I've been in patient communities for 10 years, and hosted my own. So one thing I always tell people is do not believe if a doctor tells you you're terminal, because once you believe that, you have given into the game. You are likely going to die. You're telling your cells that we're dying. You are
Yeah.
the leader of your body, is what I tell people. Like you are the leader of your body. So if you're telling it like, okay, like that's it, shockingly, that's usually what's going to follow suit unless something helps you change your purview. Now, where this gets really delicate with patients is also that, like, I've seen everything in health. I've watched a lot of friends die. I've
I'm
been
so
in this
sorry.
world for a long time. So it's really hard to have these conversations because also there's a lot we don't control. And it is true that like the way our society is set up, we're not nourished at all in the way that we really should be. And that is partly what's contributing to a lot of this disease as well. So there is physical components that can essentially support the hardware that is your body. However, your software is also just as important. And for me, like what I used to tell people is like, healing to me is getting your body on the same team. You're getting your mind, your emotions, and your physical body and your spirit. Because for me, the spirit is the trust part. And you need that when you're navigating anything insane. You have to have trust, whatever it is for you, whether that's a religion, God, whether that's, a community thing or personal, whatever it is, you have to have that component, because you have to take steps that you're not sure where you're going. And
Mm.
so that is where the mental and emotional come in. Like you have to tell yourself good stories. And the only way you can really do that is if you also can find a way to trust and accept, because the other part of it is we also really don't have control. And that's a part where someone can do all of those things. They can, address any of the emotional things and the mental things. And I've seen people do that and still die. And this is the part of life that I think is hard for people, is that we don't have control over everything. And that's just the truth. Like that's just the truth. And the more that we sort of accept that, we're able to hit this balance when we have acceptance of where we are, but we're holding like another vision and trusting that either things are going to work out or we're going to get there. Like for me, I found that's the magic place, because without the acceptance, people tend to hold too hard onto the dream, but that also hinders you. If you are so invested in getting to a particular destination, very often you're going to miss how you actually get there because you think you know how to get there. And for example, like allopathic medicine is a good example, right? You think like I got to go to the doctor. The doctor's going to give me all the right things. Yes, if you're in an accident, that's probably true. But like if you have a chronic illness, actually it's probably not true. So you will never be able to step outside of that if you're so like attached to the outcome and what you think it looks like, and that you think you know the journey, because there's this middle part where like 90% of the time, the way you think it's going to go, it doesn't go. And most of the time, just like working on any dream or, even at the gym, it gets worse before it gets better, and you have setbacks. And so the trust is what carries you through, like toward the vision, but the acceptance is what puts you in the right energy and like internal state to be good with right now. And the huge part of that is that you're not in resistance to the now, because that also creates separation from self and the body.
It's
But
so
yeah,
beautiful.
I love the uncertainty. I will have to look her up because
She's amazing. Her book called Mindfulness, but yeah, I'll send you all the stuff. So, okay, so for the podcast listener, let's keep it. I'm curious how you could do this for someone who doesn't have chronic illness. What are like top, let's say, 10 things that they could do now to improve their health? And then if you, if you could also, I don't know if you can hybrid that list, so it could apply to both chronic and not chronic people, or if you want to separate it. I
yeah,
want to know your golden list of what people can do to
yeah.
drastically improve their health.
Okay, my golden list is going to be it's going to be a little bit broad, because when you have a lot of illnesses and a lot of symptoms, and you have a history of being a project manager, you have to learn to systemize and pull things out to become repeatable processes that you can just iterate on. Because what I will say, there is no one thing that's gonna fix everything, but there are principles and directions and lifestyle changes that you can start to make one at a time. That's, in my opinion, key. so that you don't get stuck in overwhelm and then quit, because that's what happens. So here's what I'll say. The difference between people who are healthy or perceived healthy versus the people who are chronically sick is I categorize healing into two parts. One is coping strategy and one is healing strategy. So when you're chronically ill and when anybody starts to have symptoms, they're immediately looking for coping strategy, whether or not they know it. But what that essentially is, oh my God, I have a problem and I need to fix it. That's the linear path. And that's how most people think about health. But overall healing strategy can be applied to both groups because it is what ends up supporting your body as a whole. And this is the nonlinear path. So it's not as um, A plus B equals C. It's more kind of adjusting a lot of things in your environment and your lifestyle over time and kind of building your own defense, really. The best defense is a good offense. So you're pretty much going on the offense. Um, but that can be a big project. So I would break that down. So I'm probably not going to remember 10, but a few things I would say is so for the people who are dealing with chronic things, they probably already know what some of their coping strategies are. But what I would say is like, though the goal for those people is to get them to a place where they're stable enough to start experimenting. If you're not stable enough to start experimenting, you're always going to be stuck in reactivity and coping strategy because it's just too loud in the body. The pain, the symptoms, it takes over and the primal brain kicks in and you're, whether or not you know it, you're just in like survival mode, make this stop. So for those folks, that it's going to be normal to prioritize coping strategies. Again, I think the process is the same. You're going to be experimenting and looking for what I would call lower risk, higher reward solutions. So that brings me back to the overall list. The first thing I would say is look for things that are low risk, high reward. A lot of allopathic medicine is not low risk. A lot of it's not low risk. There's a lot of crap in it. All you got to do is pull out the side effect paper, and you will see that a lot of it is not low risk. So I would look at what are some common things that you think you might need if something goes wrong, and what are some natural ways to address that instead. So silver is a great one. Antibiotics, harsher meds. There is a consequence in that you're nuking the body, but you're also taking out other things. And over time, if you do that too much, you're throwing off your whole body as an ecosystem. And that is going to make you more susceptible to more illness, to chronic illness, to all sorts of things. So I would start making swaps. Like, personally, I like silver, but it's a natural antimicrobial. But you can also just find more natural ways to boost your immune system. Get it through food instead of, you know, supplements. Supplements work, but ideally synergist like everything works synergistically. So the more you can get things in food and more natural ways, the better. Um, I would, so unfortunately, our life is very toxin filled. And it's very, very inconvenient to start to look at that. And it can be very overwhelming. So this next one, I would say you really have to learn to think of it like the 80-20 rule. You're never going to get 100. And if you try and you stress yourself out trying to get 100, you are only going to be actually in the energy of contributing to disease because you're stressing yourself out. So this is one.
Talk about a little bit about the 80-20 rule, just so people who don't know it.
Um, Essentially, you want to aim for like a high percentage of something, not you're not trying to get perfection. You're just trying to, eventually amend your life to mostly be on the less toxic side. And the reason I say that is because when toxins, quote unquote toxins, is such a big topic. So for that one, I would say like what you're gonna have to do, and what I still do, because like I said, it's too much. Like everything has stuff. So you have to look at things closer. You have to look at your food closer. You have to look at your makeup closer. You have to look at your clothes closer. You have to look at your cleaning products. And when you start to look at things, you're going to realize that all these little bits of toxins, including pharma meds, they add up over time in the body, and it takes a toll for your body to be trying to continuously process some of these things. And some of these things are, don't really process out. Like we all have a lot of microplastics in us because everything is plastic. So there's this thing where what I suggest people do is pick an area of your life that feels doable and start learning a little bit more about that and swapping things out. So, a lot of my clients, I start first with like cleaning supplies. Like a lot of cleaning supplies are really not great for us.
I personally made that transition to like vinegar and baking soda, and it's like I love it. I love knowing my son because I want to teach my son to clean too. And it's like, so if my son can't clean with these products, why would I clean with these products? So it's like he
Right?
he like I put it in a little powdered sugar container, and so he'll like pour out the powdered sugar in the tub, and he'll squirt the vinegar bottle, and he'll like scrub with a
Yeah.
little sugar dad, what's it? Not sugar
Oh,
daddy, scrub daddy. And I'm like, I just feel so good about it as a mom. Like, all my cleaning supplies are things he can use.
yep.
So I don't have to freak out and like lock the cabinets. Like, I
Yeah.
still do anyway, but like, it's a peace of mind as a mom.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like there's so many things like that. And that cleaning products is one I really like because they're harsh. And I think it's sad, but like the truth is like we should be catering to, like, if you wouldn't let your kid use something, or when you get pregnant, like the thing that kills me is that like all of the rules that happen when you get pregnant, and some of it is to help a viable fetus, but some of it is just like, do you know that they don't let you wear perfume into IVF clinics because they have a shit ton of toxins in perfume?
The
Like,
endocrine
so
suppressors. Yeah.
yeah, so it's this thing. It's like, okay, so if why is it okay that you women, or, men and women are wearing perfume all of the fucking time, except for when you're trying to get pregnant? Like, what do you think is happening when?
Yeah, it's nuts. It's
So,
nuts.
but yeah, the cleaning supplies, and if people don't want to sort of use natural things like that, the nice thing is a lot has changed in the 15 years um, that I have been navigating health stuff. So there is so many more options now. So two things I like for cleaning that I think really can cover almost everything. Aside from I also use vinegar and baking soda and all that kind of stuff as well. But there's a brand called Branch Basics. And I recommend that to a lot of clients if they don't want to have to do a lot of thinking about their cleaning. Um, and another thing I like, a lot of, I think parents especially get kind of hesitant because they're like, well, I need a disinfectant, right? And so there's a brand called Force of Nature. And what that does is it's creating hypochlorous acid, and that you can use as a disinfectant. To be honest, this is also going to sound probably crazy to a lot of people, but we don't need as much disinfecting and as much I don't, really use antibacterial things. We don't need as many of these kill everything um type of tools as people think. I like I have the Force of Nature thing. Um I use it, but not all the time 24/7 because you know, we have to start realizing that our microbiome is our friend. We are always living with viruses and bacteria and stuff. If you're constantly sick, that is a sign that your body's just not running efficiently as it could be. It's not just
Hmm.
that you're catching everything, it's that for some reason, something is suppressing your body's natural like clean out responses. So everything's getting backed up and it's having to make you sick to then try to get rid of it, essentially. Um,
Wow.
yeah, like getting sick is that's another thing I would suggest to people is stop suppressing your sickness, like
Oh,
unless,
that drives me crazy. Yeah,
yeah,
or I even think like, why are we suppressing pain so much? Like, I think at that pain, like I remember when I was in the ambulance, they were like, "Oh, let's give her morphine." And I was like, "Actually, I'm okay with pain. Like I want to be able to tell you when it's happening, how intense it is, so that you guys can figure out what's happening." And I was like, "It's so crazy how uncomfortable we become so comfortable that
yeah.
we can't even tolerate pain." And I'm like, thank God to like David Goggins and those kind of leaders that are like, no, seek pain. Pain makes you grow. Pain makes you really, really strong. And that's why I love the gym. But like, I just thought that was such an interesting statement she said. And I was like, I'm fine. Like, yeah, this is like labor level contractions, but like I labored natural for 20 hours. I got this. Like, I can do this. I'm a very strong person. So yeah, you were saying the symptoms. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. Like there is, and this is why it's hard to try to teach people these things in a shorter like window, but all of this is more of a dance, like there's a window of pain serves a purpose. Pain is communication with your body. It's so important. Like my shingles nerve damage arm is what taught me that. It was really what first started. Actually, I had this realization like, oh, like my body is just trying to talk to me, even when it's getting worse. And I just have to learn from it. And I learned like, oh, these textures of clothing piss off my body. And I need to, and a lot of how I started kind of recognizing patterns was because of my insanely painful shingles nerve damage. But that's what I'm saying. There's so much we can learn from our bodies and our body. Like if there's one thing I want to impart on people, it is how fucking miraculous your body is. It's so fucking miraculous. And also, people do not know how much it can be totally fucked up and not get what it needs for years and still you're functioning and living, and then what
That's
happens if
crazy.
something breaks and then we're mad at it and I'm like, God, it's not your body. You probably didn't know, but you probably weren't giving it something it needed. And if you can approach it with this like open-minded, like, okay, we got this because there's nobody more invested in you staying alive than your own body. Then
Wow.
you can get a lot farther along instead of believing that somebody else has the answers for you. I'm not saying we can't collaborate with
Right.
experts and whatnot,
Yeah.
but part of being willing to feel pain, to an extent, is you're going to be able to better communicate what's going on when you do see somebody. Like that's very important. So, yeah. By that same token, like fevers is another one. People very often try to suppress fevers. I'm like, unless it is a like dangerous, gonna fry your brain fever, a fever is your body's way to kill shit off and clear things out. Like it's supposed to heat up. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to. When we're coughing, like I understand it's so inconvenient for being in the world, and especially after COVID, people get so scared. But also, that's your body trying to get rid of things, and that's actually a good thing. And so, yes, there are levels in which these things can become too much, right? That is the reason that we have interventions. There are like dangerous fevers. True. That's the time to intervene. There are times when, okay, maybe you can't sleep at all through the night and you haven't slept for 3 days because you're coughing. Okay, that's maybe what we're supposed to do, but we really don't use these things that way. We really kind of lean into convenience and placing everything else above our bodies, just habitually
Yeah.
in our society.
And I feel really lucky. I don't know where my parents got this, but I feel like they were very much like my dad. He would cook us like home cooked meals Monday
Mm.
through Friday. Weekends we would go out, but like not not at the beginning because they were really, strapping for cash, but like later on we'd go out on the weekends. But like it's become fast food nation, right? Like it's become fast food nation. And like I watch I watch a lot of people in my network and I watch what they feed their kids and I'm like, oh, it just makes me cringe because I'm just like, that has zero nutrition. And when I taught English in China for 4 months, and it's like and I was in the school, right? And it's amazing. It is amazing. Like, I'll take this plate, right? Like, just pretend this is like a lunch plate, right? It's metal. It has a big thing of rice. It has veggies, protein, protein, protein. Like, it's like so healthy,
My
different
gosh,
meals. Like
amazing.
they have all kinds of meals. And I'm just like, the American diet is like the standard American diet, the sad diet. It's just like, I don't know. And it's interesting that like my parents wouldn't really give me a lot of medicine. Like they were just kind of like, let it ride out. And like they were, I've always been like anti-ibuprofen, like not anti,
Me
but just like
too.
I
Ironically, me
hate it.
too.
Yeah, I just like I'm
Yeah.
like my body, I really don't like how I feel with
On those drugs.
medicine. No, no, I'm just like my body's really smart and like I'm strong and like I think it's gonna just write it off, but like I'll take it if it gets worse, right?
Mhm.
But like I don't know why. I don't know why. And I used to have migraines as a kid and I would take Excedrin, but like I noticed when I would stop taking it, it was like, and I don't know what I think I was like hydrating more. I was like, I'm just like really thirsty. And so I was like, I started drinking water and I was like experimenting, like you're talking about, and then my headaches went away. So it was just like, my body was trying to tell me I was dehydrated this whole time. So it's like, you know, but I love what you're saying about like not suppressing symptoms. Your body's coughing, your body's fevering, like your body's doing the things it's trying to do, and we're just trying to be like, you're not helping my lifestyle right now. Stop coughing, you know?
Yeah, and that's one of the tougher things is that like so much of what it really takes to heal, if society was set up differently, it would be easier, but because of the way it's set up, it becomes this full-time sort of job. You have to learn to think differently about your body. You have to make time to kind of learn about your body. You have to make time to kind of start changing your products around the house. And when you're busy and you have kids and you're working a full-time job and, you barely have time to do anything, you know, and like kind of going back to your point about seeing what people feed kids and stuff, I also like teach part-time. And it's tough because when we bring this up, like it's not a judgment thing at all. Like I
No.
understand, like
Yes.
society
It's
is not
so hard.
built for this, which is very hard. It's hard even for me as I'm sort of trying to get back in the world again because I know my needs and what I need and where I'm willing and unwilling to compromise. It's very hard because society is not built for this, which is why I try to, you know, have people slow down. Like, don't try to solve your health problem in a night. Instead of start now when it's not so bad. Pick one item for a month that you want to change in your household. If you're like, okay, let's try cleaning supplies, and then you could swap that out and then experiment until you find something you like. If that took 3 months, who cares? One thing down. Then
Yeah.
move on to the next thing because really at the end of the day, it's changing the neural pathways and creating new habits. That is why people really don't get healthy,
Yeah.
is that is what blocks those things because it feels like this huge project. And then sometimes it does take time to experiment, to
Yeah.
get new habits and routines and find your new thing or product. And if you try to do it all at once, you're not gonna do it. Like right now, I'm in the process of trying to change, my clothing to more natural fibers. And
Yeah.
I'll say it like as a woman, because I do have friends who are, very into fashion and they're makeup artists and stuff like that. And I've definitely had, when I was younger, had my era of like, super hot, fashionable outfits. But as I'm like clearing out my closet, because I really haven't touched it in like 10 years, because I've just been in survival mode. And I'm looking at all of these beautiful things and I'm like, plastic, 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 and I'm like, it's a shame because you're not going to get sort of the same vibe that you
Right.
might want. But then I'm like, so then at that point, you have to sit down and think about, okay, and this is why I say again, 80/20. Maybe keep some of your stuff, maybe wear it for certain things or photo shoots or for certain events or hobbies, but maybe your everyday job stuff, you have more chill, natural fibers. But this is why it's hard because people are so attached to certain ways of being, and that's
Mm,
understandable. But
yeah.
some of those ways of being are actually very destructive to our bodies. And then I also tell people start with the thing you feel most comfortable starting with. If you love makeup and you don't want to look into that yet, fine. Start with, cleaning supplies. Swap out all the candles in your house and all of the, there's unfortunately, because there's so much shit in our world, you have an endless place to start. You just have to pick one. You
You
just have
start
to,
in a myriad of
yeah.
ways.
And it's good and bad, but the
Yeah.
good thing is, I'm not telling people, I don't tell people like it is important that we're also happy and that we're
Yeah.
also not stressed and that we're not like, oh my God, when I first started realizing how many toxins were in things and I was so sick, it was such a stressful experience because I was like,
Yeah.
everything is killing me. And then I
Right.
realized, yeah, I'm not going to be able to change this all overnight, and stressing
Yeah.
about it is not going to make me better or faster. So I was
Right.
like, one thing at a time.
Well, and it kind of sounds like a fad diet. You can do the same thing with like a fad health renovation. It's like you start for a very small period, but what you're trying to go for is like, no, no, no. We're trying to go for a lifestyle.
A
So
long
like,
game.
yeah, so it's like, and Ben, he's a bodybuilder. My son's father, he is a bodybuilder, and he tells his clients the same thing. He's like, just like, can we just cut 100 calories of carbs or
Yes.
100 calories of fats? Like, can we just add a little bit, like a cup of yogurt every breakfast with
Mhm.
15 grams of protein? And it's like, yo, those little things add up so much. If you did it over, there's a really cool book called oh, Compound Effect. The Compound Effect.
Oh, yes. I talk about compounding all the time, but I haven't actually read that book.
Oh, you would love it.
I could, yeah, I was like, I think I would like it.
Oh, you would love it. He says he took a guy and he gave like all his measurements, I don't know, 6 foot, 200 pounds, and they take that guy and he's eating the same. They take that guy and add 350 calories to his diet and decrease his diet 350 calories, which is like uh, it's something so small. It's like a chicken breast, right? You just add a chicken breast or decrease. But anyway, and it's crazy over 1 year how the drastic changes if you just did that for a whole year. 350 calories. And it is so cool, the power of compounding. So that's
Mhm.
cool you talk about that with your clients.
Yeah, and because there's so many things like you want it to be a sustainable practice. You want
Yeah.
health to be a sustainable practice.
Yeah.
And it's not when you suddenly realize I have to change every fucking thing. So then you just quit.
Right.
So
Yeah.
instead, start before you feel like shit, is what I would say in an ideal world. Start today, but don't overwhelm yourself. Like, pick one. There's tons of things I'm still slowly changing. Like, even some of my cookware is still like not super ideal, but I have a couple pieces that are, and I really just, at this point, at some point, health became like a fun little game for me. And even the backtracking, because I did for a long time, that was very normal. And I talk about that because I want people to know it's normal. That doesn't mean bad things are happening. It actually could mean progress. But it turned into a game, and I would backtrack and I'd be like, ooh, either I'm gonna learn something or I'm clearing some shit out and I'm gonna be better after this. And it turned into this fun
Wow.
game. And if you can make it a fun, simple, just extra little project that you have to look at once a month to
Mhm.
change a habit. And if that one habit takes you 3 months, who cares? You did it. So wait then the fourth month, start on the second thing. And that's why I tell people, don't start with the thing that you love. Like if fashion's the thing that you love, okay, well, maybe then just make sure like your panties are organic cotton or something, like maybe
Yeah.
start with like the sensitive areas, or it's like
Yeah.
zoom in and make it palatable and bite-sized and doable
Yeah.
and just keep going. And you want to go for things that are low risk, high reward, zoom in, small changes. I tell people, with a lot of their products and makeups and stuff, don't freak out and throw everything out all at once if that's going to cause you financial strain or mental or emotional strain. Just when you start getting low on something, you know, put it on your list and spend a couple minutes researching what might be some better options. There's so much more information out there now. So, and I wouldn't say you don't have to get the perfect better option. You just want to be moving in the right direction. So don't stress yourself out over like, is this the perfect non-talk? No, that's
Yeah.
not the game. The game is a little bit forward in as many areas as we can, and that shit will compound.
I love that. What's a good tool people can use, like kind of like you're saying, like cookware, linen, house fragrances, personal fragrances. So like, what are the categories of health, and then like, how do you know which products, or is there a tool available that tells you quality of product?
Yeah, there are a lot of tools available now. I don't really use any of them anymore because the crappy thing is like there have been some, and then maybe just like there were some products that used to be very organic and then some big company bought them out. The tough thing is that over time things change. And so
Mm,
sometimes some of those apps, there are rumors that people can, buy them off. I don't know which ones, and I'm sure that's not all of them. So I
yeah.
don't use any of those now. A lot of it is because I've been doing this for so long that I kind of know what I'm looking for, and then I experiment. So my big thing is like I'm gonna choose something and then I'm gonna experiment and then I'm gonna find out how to make it work for me. And if it doesn't work for me, then I'm gonna try something else.
Oh my
But if
God, you're gonna love Ellen Langer. She literally
yeah,
says
okay.
she talks about decision fatigue, and she's like, make whatever decision the right decision. Like just pick one and
Mhm.
just
You
try
can
it.
pivot. You can
Yeah,
pivot later.
right. Oh, you're gonna love her.
Later. And that's why I tell people like if you're worried about budget, if you're worried about um, you know, things like that where you feel like you have constraints because I was a PM, then that's where I'm like go for things that are like low risk high reward or something that you can invest a little bit. Like if you're worried about like I don't know what water thing to I right now I've used a few different filters, but right now I use a distiller and I just add like minerals back in. Like there you can freak out and think you need the most expensive thing, but that's not always what you need. Like it's more just like finding something that's a little bit more of a better choice and that is in alignment with what you're ready to change or experiment with, and then you make it your own. However, that said, if somebody's feeling overwhelmed, there's so many you can try the apps. I'm sure they're better than just getting anything from the store. So
Right.
that even that to me is a step forward. If that's all you can do, like try the apps or find a blog that talks about some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever makes you feel like you're making progress, but be the person in charge. So if
Don't
you
let people
use
tell you what is healthy.
yeah, so like
I
if
love
you
that.
choose to use a product and try it, like pay attention while you're using it.
Yeah,
And sometimes when you're healthier, you might not always like necessarily know right away, but you do want to pay attention for if anything seems like it's not good for you. Like if suddenly you're getting headaches, okay, maybe that's not the right thing. Um,
right.
but you want to be like an active participant in the process. So even and part of this, came from, I have worked with a lot of experts. I've researched a lot of things. I've done a lot of things. And I realized like, oh, if you just look at science, things are always going to change. We're going to,
Yes,
people
yeah.
reformulate products, all sorts of things happen. And we can take that and be overwhelmed by it, or we can just choose to make a decision in the right direction today. And then just let that be a part of your life that you're, reevaluating. Like maybe the next time it's time to change pots and pans, maybe something new will have come out and I'll just do a quick search and be like, oh, actually, I want to try this instead. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be, there's no like health. Health is a game until we die. So there is no end game. It's a consistent evolution. Um, and all we really have to do is play the long game for the like bigger picture, but in the day to day, we're doing one decision at a time, one small change at a time, one habit change at a time. Like if you eat out every single day of the week, maybe just find one meal that you can meal prep. Maybe pick breakfast and decide you're going to meal prep breakfast and you're just going to master that one recipe with good ingredients. And that's good enough for now. And then once that becomes autopilot, you can expand it. You can add another one. You can, it doesn't have to be, this intense process. And I have found that there is no right decision. I've tried tons of ways of eating and stuff for a lot. What I found is everything works for some people and everything doesn't work for some people. And
Mm.
the only way that you really, figure things out is that you are being an active participant and you're paying attention to how the changes you're making are interacting with your body.
I
Um,
love that. Oh my God, that's amazing. That's this, we can talk for hours, but I
I
promise
know we
to cut it
could.
off. But so how can people connect with you and if they have their own health journey and they're wanting to be a client of yours, like how do people connect with you?
Oh gosh, right now a lot of my stuff is word of mouth. So I would say DM me on Instagram. I am working on maybe putting things together a little bit more organized, but a lot of it's just been word of mouth because of I that's all I've needed to do. So I would say DM me on Instagram
What's
at
your
Melissa.
handle?
It's Melissa Aisha John. Or my health one, although I've taken a break from some of the advocacy work at the moment, is Spoonie Cult. Either of those, um, probably the easiest way to
Yeah,
contact for the short term, or my email. But I
I
feel
love
old saying that.
I love it. No, it's great. I'll put all that in the show notes. But Melissa, this was so we have to do a part two. I already feel a part two. Like we
I
have
know.
to do
Well,
part
you
two.
know, I feel like I talked all over the place, so I think we need an agenda for part two. So that's so that I
Well,
can.
I also think people really love being that fly on the wall with chaotic, unorganized conversation. I really like those conversations are really valuable. They really are. Yeah.
That's to where it
Oh,
takes us.
yes. Thank you so much, Melissa. This was amazing.
Thank you. This is really good. I love health nerdy things.
Amazing.
All right, before you go, I need you to hear this. You don't need to keep white knuckling your way through life. You don't need to figure it out on your own. You deserve support. You deserve strategy. You deserve to feel like yourself again. And that's exactly why I'm offering you a complimentary free 30-minute coaching session. No strings, no pressure, just real conversation, real breakthroughs, and a real chance to feel lighter, clearer, and way more in control. If you've been listening and nodding your head thinking, yes, that's me, then this is the moment to stop thinking and start doing. Click the link in the show notes and schedule your free session right now. Right now, not later, not when you have time, right this moment, because you're worth showing up for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram at healing_with_Haley. I am here for you, but don't overthink it. What you're going to do in this free session
is we're going to unpack any negative belief systems, build momentum with clear strategies, leave you feeling lighter, calmer, more confident, more grounded. These are the emotions you're going to feel after a session with me. Don't overthink it. The life you want starts with one decision. This could be the one thing that changes everything for you this year. Let's do this.